Thrusters ahead, Mr. Silver.
I'll get somebody down there as soon as I can clear.
Take us out. 1/4 impulse power.
Let's see what's out there.
It's instinctive. The instinct can be fought. We're human beings with the blood of a million savage years on our hands. But we can stop it. We can admit that we're killers, but we're not going to kill today. That's all it takes. Knowing that we're not going to kill today.
Total peace. To prevent that, we would die, Captain. As a race, if necessary.
I admire your ethics and hope to prove ours. Kirk to Enterprise.
Spock here.
Report on magnetic storm, Mr. Spock.
Standard ion type, Captain, but quite violent. And unpredictable.
Rough ride?
If we stay.
Stand by to beam up landing party. Plot an extended orbit to clear disturbance. Kirk out. When may we resume discussion?
The Council will meditate further, but do not be hopeful of any change. Captain Kirk, you do have the might to force the crystals from us, of course.
But we won't. Consider that. energize.
They're the storm ladies.
Spock was right. That was a rough... At norm, Mr. Kyle. Controls at neutral.
Yes, sir.
Standard submission, Captain.
No change.
Standard procedure, Captain. Mr. Sulu, you will program phaser barrage on all Hulkin City.
Yes, Mr. Spock.
Their military capabilities, Captain.
None.
It is regrettable this society has chosen suicide. Mr. Kyle, you were instructed to compensate during the ion storm.
But I tried, Mr. Spock. I tried.
Carelessness with the equipment cannot be tolerated.
But Mr. Spock,
You're agonizer.
No, Mr. Spock.
Your agonizer, please.
No, Mr. Spock. I tried. I really...
This is a galaxy-wide transmission of the United Federation of Planets.
Welcome back to Continuum Meditations Discusses. In a previous video, we talked about the repercussions of the StarTrek Axanar lawsuit settlement between CBS Studios and Paramount Pictures and the Axanar Productions film group. In that video, I shared with you the rules, or guidelines as they are called by CBS and Paramount, that were handed down by CBS in the wake of that settlement. I shared with you my understanding of those rules both as they were stated on paper and how, in the case of at least some of the guidelines, loosely binding language could leave these rules open for unchecked expansion of authority by CBS and Paramount in the future. I advise the Star Trek community to stand up to these rules and to not allow them to become strengthened by exercise and entangled in precedent, but instead to detect the potential for abuse that CBS and Paramount are reaching for through these guidelines, and to avoid such abuse by denying the principles upon which the guidelines are based. I now want to talk to you about solutions, because I believe the flames of passion must have an outlet that can transform such raw, unbridled energy into constructive action. So, while drawing attention to the potential problems of the guidelines in the first video, and beginning a discussion that I thought was sorely missing in the wake of the Axanar settlement, it is now my intention to point out ways that Star Trek fans can positively channel indignation over CBS and Paramount's actions into avenues that can, ultimately, become beneficiary to the Star Trek fan film and Star Trek fan communities as a whole. So, let's get into solutions. Solution number 1. Create your own videos exposing the problem. As stated earlier, I set out to shed light on what I deemed to be an understated problem, to fill a vacuum of understanding on a subject that I believed was not being fully exposed, nor its implications fully explored by some of the major articles that have been written, nor some of the major internet personalities and Star Trek fan groups who have discussed the issue. And in the doing, I sought to provoke awareness and, yes, outrage over these rules. I sought to spur you to action, so that these rules do not become cemented into formal objective policy by CBS and Paramount Pictures over a long period of Star Trek filmmakers simply making a good faith effort to comply with the rules in order to keep peace with the major studios so that they can continue their own productions. Solution number 2. Tweet, blog, and post about the guidelines. There will be greater understanding when the Trek community as a whole is unified in its efforts to expose these guidelines for what they are, a power grab by CBS and Paramount Pictures. My advice to you is that when discussing these rules in your own videos, blogs, and podcasts, etc., is to directly quote and post them, in addition to providing the source for others to find and read these rules for themselves. Solution number 3. Boycott Star Trek Discovery. Boycott CBS All Access. I'm expanding this tactic to mean not simply avoiding the new Star Trek show coming out, God knows when it's coming out, but, or even the CBS All Access network itself that it will be offered upon. I'm also talking about boycotting Paramount Pictures and other CBS television and film programs as well. If there's a Paramount Pictures movie you know that is coming out soon, don't go see it in the theaters. Don't rent it on Netflix. Don't buy the Blu-ray DVD. Withhold all support and encourage others to do the same. This not only applies to Star Trek material, but other TV and movie programs you pay for as well. Solution number 4, perhaps one of the best solutions that we can enact out of the list that I'm giving you now. Solution number 4 is to solicit Star Trek actors' response to the guidelines. Get Star Trek actors to speak out about the rules and to offer their opinions in public. Now, this could be anything from inviting them to speak out on podcasts, to writing articles of their own for publication, to publishing their own videos on YouTube, to being interviewed on radio programs and other internet chats, to speaking at science fiction conventions, to writing open letters for inclusion in sci-fi fan club circulars, and beyond. In particular, you should get Star Trek actors who have worked on fan film projects in the past to speak out about the rules and publicly offer their support and sponsorship of independent Star Trek fan films. Such actors include Walter Koenig, Garrett Wang, Tim Russ, J.G. Hertzler, Nichelle Nichols, Ethan Phillips, Tony Todd, and several others. Star Trek actors can be contacted on their Twitter feeds, their Facebook pages, their personal websites, at science fiction conventions, through their agents, through media contacts, etc. And you know, while we're on the subject of Star Trek actors, let me draw attention once again to a provision contained in the CBS Paramount rules, because I think this points to the level of audacity that CBS and Paramount are reaching for with these guidelines. As I stated to you in my first video on the subject, I read the rules to you verbatim, and I put the rules up for you on screen so that you could read them for yourselves, and I also provided a link where you could go and see the rules as they were originally written by CBS and Paramount Pictures. I want to quote from that rule, one of those rules again. Rule number 5 says that the fan production must be a real fan, quote-unquote, fan production, i.e. creators, actors, and all other participants must be amateurs, cannot be compensated for their services, and cannot be currently or previously employed on any Star Trek series, films, production of DVDs, or with any of CBS or Paramount Pictures licensees. Now I want to be clear about something. I want to talk about a specific provision in that rule, or guideline as they call them. And that is this. It states that the fan production cannot be currently, it states that participants must be amateurs and that they cannot be currently or previously employed on any Star Trek series, films, production of DVDs, or with any of CBS or Paramount Pictures licensees. The final clause, the final 2 clauses of that rule are what I want to talk about. And I want to be clear about something. Unless an actor has an existing binding or exclusivity clause in their contract with an existing studio or film company, there is no film company on Earth that can tell that actor who they can or cannot work with. Now, this means that CBS and Paramount Pictures have no right under the sun to dare demand that independent Star Trek fan films cannot hire or attempt to hire professional actors, Star Trek or non-Star Trek, for their films. Now, this also applies to other professionals such as camera crews, makeup personnel, post-production editors, and anyone else whom you can afford or who chooses to volunteer their services for your production. Now, I wanted to point that out and make that plain as the day is long, because I wanted you to understand and see clearly the brazenness and the flagrant capacities for abuse that these rules are actually asking you to accept on their face value, so that you understand exactly what we're dealing with here, and why these rules, if they are followed by the Star Trek fan film community, are so dangerous to the future of independent Star Trek fan film. Now let's get back to solutions, having said that. Solution number 5 follows on the heels of what I just said. Fan filmmakers resist, do not comply with these rules, and here I'm speaking directly to fan film content creators. CBS and Paramount have no authority whatsoever to tell you who you can work with, how much money you can raise, what kinds of props and uniforms you can use, or how long your films can be. As I stated before in the comment section of the previous video on the Axanar settlement, I believe what CBS and Paramount are seeking is voluntary compliance that they can later use as a means of establishing precedent that can be transformed into actual, actionable enforcement later that a court of law will accept. Now, this, in my opinion, is a long-range objective, and the more you comply now in whole or in part with these rules, the greater their case will be in the future for enforcing the validity of the guidelines as a complete continuum as we go down the line. So my advice to you again is, do not bow down to these rules. Do not comply with them. Resistance is not futile. Solution number 6. Involve the legal community in a process of discovery concerning the legality of the guidelines. A talented legal mind can call into question, based on current existing law, whether CBS and Paramount have legal standing to enforce these so-called guidelines or not. And they can help fan filmmakers break down these rules, parsing them for that language which is strictly legally binding, loosely legally binding, non-legally binding, and that language which is based on mere bluff and the intimidation of 2 giant corporations trying to throw their weight around like bullies. A process of discovery leading to what is and is not enforceable by Paramount and CBS could lead to a class action lawsuit against these corporations should they decide to try and later enforce the rules or sue individual or collective filmmakers who allegedly violate them. Solution number 7. Start a letter writing campaign to smaller private film studios exposing the guidelines. Do you know of other independent film groups who make their own films, Star Trek or otherwise? Send them these guidelines to show them how their association or potential association with CBS and Paramount Pictures could be jeopardized by the application of these edicts upon their own projects. Remember, the rules, while they principally apply to Star Trek, are open-ended enough to eventually be applied to any Paramount or CBS licensee chosen, as stated in Rule number 5, which I again quote for you, that says, "The fan production must be a real fan production. Creators, actors, and all other participants must be amateurs, cannot be compensated for their services, and cannot be currently or previously employed on any Star Trek series, films, production of DVDs, or with any of CBS or Paramount Pictures licensees." Now this simply means that anyone that you may choose to work with in the future, with anyone who is licensed with CBS or Paramount Pictures, you could possibly be sued or taken to some type of undertaken with some type of legal action against you if CBS or Paramount Pictures chooses to do so. This is how open-ended these so-called rules or guidelines are, and this is why they are so dangerous to the freedom of Star Trek and other independent filmmakers should CBS or Paramount Pictures choose not only to enforce them against Star Trek, but to expand them against other independent filmmakers. So don't believe that if Paramount Pictures and CBS are successful here with Star Trek independent filmmakers, that this has to stop with Star Trek alone. Now, any one of these solutions by themselves may or may not get CBS or Paramount Pictures notice, but in tandem or in combination, they can raise not only awareness, but the fighting spirit of the Star Trek community, which it is my express purpose to arouse. These 7 solutions are not the only potential answers to this extraordinary challenge, nor the only means to confront the crisis that Paramount Pictures and CBS have placed before us. There are many other creative ways to become involved in fighting back against this overreach, and of the 7 solutions placed before you, at least 6 of them can be accomplished by anyone, anywhere on the face of the planet. I will conclude by saying, fellow Star Trek fans, I encourage you to not be complacent in recognizing nor hitting back against these rules and what their implications could mean for the future of Star Trek fan films and beyond. Get organized to fight back now and fight to win. Become involved as a puller at the oars, not simply as a passenger in the boat. Continue a dialogue on this subject that brings greater exposure to the problem at hand, and join with others in finding even more effective solutions that will nix this matter in the bud. Speak up and speak out so that Paramount and CBS know that we will not simply go quietly and bow down to an overbearing hand that wishes to control and dominate us without challenge. Perhaps one of the first things you can do after viewing this video is to begin planning, filming, and publishing your own considered reactions to the new fan film rules so that others can become similarly exposed to their implications. This has been another discussion by Continuum Meditations, and until next time, Star Trek fans, live long and prosper.
I was the greatest threat the Continuum had ever known. They feared me so much they had to lock me away for eternity. And when they did that, they were saying that the individual's rights will be protected only so long as they don't conflict with the state. Nothing is so dangerous to a society.
All right, today I want to look at some of the Furuta Star Trek collection. All I really know about these is they're Japanese products. I believe they might be blind boxed, and each of them comes with a piece to build another figure, I believe. I just bought a bunch randomly, the ones that I wanted, primarily the Enterprises. I also have the DS9 somewhere. I cannot find it right now. And I always wanted to get the Defiant and the Romulan Warbird, but for some reason the Defiant is rare and the Romulan Warbird is, I believe, the bonus piece that comes with its set. So it's extraordinarily rare and runs for anywhere between $60 and $100 on eBay. Let's see if we can get a look at these. These are neat little plastic. I think they are disassembled in their boxes and you put them together. Whoever I bought these from glued them all together except for the Enterprise B. That one pretty much comes apart all the way. Let's see. They are about 4 inches long. Let's see if I can get some better lighting. Let's do a size comparison. Here we have a Transformer Deluxe, Generations. And here it is next to the Enterprise D. They are approximately of a length. And depending on which one you look at, the width, of course, is quite different. If you are familiar with the Hot Wheels Star Trek line, there's the Enterprise D, here's the Furuta Enterprise E, or the Enterprise D, maybe that's a better comparison. They are significantly different sizes. The Hot Wheels one is much larger. And it's a little bit more detailed, of course, but this one has a fair amount of sculpting in it. Decent paint. Actually, on the Hot Wheels one, there's no sculpted line there. On the Furuta one, that is a little sculpted. 2 lines for the red. It's got a raised emblem there. Let's see if I can do this without bumping the camera so much. What else to say compared to them? The bridge dome is raised more. Comes off its stand easier, usually. That one's pretty tight. But anyway, so in some respects it actually has, in some places I guess, it has more sculpting, in other places not as much. This is not a review of the Hot Wheels one. So let's start with the original. The 1701 Enterprise. It's kind of a goofy looking ship, but I've always liked the design. It looks really good in profile in particular. Again, I guess there's not really a whole lot to say about these. They're all pretty much the same. They have some sculpted lines in for detail. Some of the painting is done at sculpted edges, some not. Wait to get more light. But, you know, I'm not a super knowledgeable person when it comes to the minutia of the various ship designs. So as far as I know, this is pretty accurate representation of the original series Enterprise. I know there are a couple of variations. It has the little ball ends and no spikes on the front. And that's really all I know about the Enterprise. If we bring in the refit, which I believe is identical to the A, and this one is labeled as the A. I guess I should say the lettering on all this, I don't know if it's tampoed on or painted, but it's all very nice and clean. The Enterprise A might be close to being in scale with this one, but other than that, they're not really in scale with each other. I find it interesting that the warp nacelles are blue on the inside and darker gray on the outside. I don't know why they're also not blue. But this has always been a really good update to the classic Enterprise. The swept back pylons, a more arching forward neck. Each of the stands is personalized, USS Enterprise NCC 1701-A, with a copyright that I don't care. Again, sculpted lines, lots of paint. The paint's pretty clean, not too many messed up lines, or overspray or underspray. Considering I think these might be a bit of a candy toy in Japan, or have been. The paint's pretty good. The Enterprise B, a refit of the Excelsior class ship. This one has a really cool profile. I've always liked this one. I don't know, there's something bird of prey-ish about it to me. I don't know what it is. Again, lots of decent sculpting, really good paint. This one, though, because it wasn't glued together, you can see it came in roughly 3 pieces. And you stick it together. Considering how often this one kind of falls apart, I may end up gluing this one someday. Alright. Again, I'm not super familiar with all the little details of these ships. I do have the brand new, just released Enterprise B by Diamond Select. That'll be, what, it's a 16 or 18-inch long ship. So that one will probably have some more details. Maybe I can compare them to this one and see if there's a lot missing. But I probably won't, because it has the right shape, it has the right deco, it has the right lettering on it. It has what I need from it. So let's see, what else do I have? The Enterprise C, which as far as I know was only ever seen in yesterday's Enterprise, a fabulous episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. I like how this one is starting to pull out the shape of the D that we are so familiar with from Next Gen. It has a much larger saucer in comparison to its body, and it's got the really short warp nacelles, where the other ones all have really long ones. This one has lots of little windows sculpted into it. None of them are really painted. It's even got some, this one wasn't glued together all the way. It's got some on the bottom of the saucer, it's got some on the neck, as well as some on the body. Lots and lots of little windows sculpted in. Lots of nice sculpting on the warp nacelles as well. And again, clean paint, even though these lines are going across perpendicular sculpted lines. I think it's focusing on the right ship. Let's get these other guys out of here. There, now you can see it a little better. Anyway, lots of sculpted detail, even on the bottom of the model, where you wouldn't necessarily see a lot of it. It still has plenty of sculpted detail and paint. I have owned these ships for 3 years-ish, I think. In late 2009, early 2010, I became really active on a Star Trek forum called trektoy.com, I believe. And found out about these and went on eBay and bought a set that consisted of all of the Enterprises and a couple others, which a couple I gave away. I kind of regret that now, because now I wish I had them. And the DS9. Again, we already looked at it a little bit. Here's some more of the bottom detail sculpting on the Enterprise D. I do really like the paint. Not getting the light in there very well, but I like how the saucer is painted, rather the deflector array. Again, these are not in scale with each other. This one should be quite a bit larger than the original Enterprise, or the Enterprise A, if I recall my numbers correctly. The D is close to twice as long as the original in A, and clearly these ones are not. They're all roughly the same size, which makes for a more uniform display, but I wish that there was a line that was in scale with each other, because I would love to have a much larger Enterprise D and Enterprise E to go with the originals. But such is life. And finally, my personal favoritist of the Enterprise designs, the E. I love its profile. Such a sleek, just amazing looking ship from all angles. I guess the top is kind of awkward. The saucer is so large compared to the warp nacelles that it's a little goofy looking from the top, but I love it. It definitely looks better from the sides or from the back or the front, or just not a dead-on top view. But again, lots of detailing and paint. Yeah, just such a beautiful ship. I love it. I cannot find the box that has my few Star Trek Hallmark ornaments. I have the E and the D. And I have the DS9 in there, I think, from this line, and I wanted to compare them size-wise. But these are also smaller than the... At least I'm pretty sure this one is smaller than the Hallmark Enterprise E. I think it's probably closer to the Hot Wheels size. But like I said, I can't find it, so I don't know. But anyway, I've got the new Diamond Select Enterprise B on the way, and hopefully the E should be following shortly, and I will probably throw up a review of those because they're cool ships. Diamond Select has done really good work. I do have my original Enterprise E right here. So if you're familiar with the Diamond Select ships, you can see it's huge. It doesn't fit in my light box. It completely dwarfs these Furuta ships. And I didn't think it worked, but I put new batteries in it last night. I should do a separate review for this, but since I've got it here, we'll throw some lights and sounds.
Ready phasers and quantum torpedoes.
I love that. The new E that they've got coming out, it's probably the same sculpt, but it's a more accurate paint job. They are releasing a Nemesis version first, and you probably couldn't tell because this one has some weak lights.
Fire all weapons.
Only here at the front of the nacelles and the impulse engines and the deflector dish down below. But the new one has LEDs all through the warp nacelles, and it's going to light up so much better, and it's going to look awesome, and I can't wait. And that was so off topic for the purpose of this review. So I will shut up now. In short, if you want to hunt eBay and look for some of these Furuta ships, some of them are crazy expensive, like the Romulan Warbird, the Defiant, and some of them are not. You can probably get, I think I got lucky and paid about $70 for this set that had all of the main ones I wanted, except for the Romulan Warbird and the Defiant. But that was a good price at the time, because this one tends to go for $30 by himself. And I got all of these, plus a couple others, for around then. No, that was several years ago. I don't know what the prices are like now. Shutting up now.
Red alert, shields up.
Yes, sir? shield is draining.
The top shield has failed.
Our ventral shields are draining, sir. Shields are at 75%.
That's it. We got him.
You know the greatest danger facing us is ourselves, an irrational fear of the unknown. There's no such thing as the unknown. Only things temporarily hidden, temporarily not understood.
Captain! Jim! I'm pleased to see you, Captain. I should have done this a long time ago. So, 5 card stub, nothing wild, and the sky's the limit.
It is the unknown that defines our existence. We are constantly searching, not just for answers to our questions, but for new questions.
Maybe it's not the destination that matters.
Maybe it's the journey.
There are 400 billion stars in our galaxy. We've only explored a tiny fraction. We have a lot of work to do.